Welcome to Universal Design Stories of Change. This podcast series aims to gather the experiences of persons with disabilities in Norway and internationally in order to gain a greater understanding of the benefits of universal design for persons with disabilities and everyone. We would like to thank the Norwegian Directorate for Children, Youth, and Families for their support, and the amazing team from Inclusive Creation for making it all happen. Enjoy this episode. No, it's brilliant advice. And so I just want to circle back what you said about design leadership, because of course your book is amazing and I can't wait to get my fingertips on it. And we also have a mutual colleague, Amit Patel, who runs Experience House, and they have a fantastic, not sponsoring this podcast or anything, but they have a fantastic design leadership program. So anyone out there that wants to kind of pursue this journey, taking their design skills and thinking more in terms of how they can use that to lead the pack in a lot of ways, could be a really, really big advantage for them career-wise. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on how we're training designers now versus maybe how we trained them in the past, and what sort of differences you've seen in your work.
Yeah. So I think there's a single insight from 2007 that summed this up. And it's this. I was actually crying in the shower because I'd seen so many instances of exclusion with elders, on gender, on race, and that month it would just heaped on top of me. And we'd seen some difficult to watch kind of videos from our research where people were getting shouted at. An older woman in, her late 70s, so not old, and able-bodied, but was there because of neurodiversity. And she was just the heinous sin of clearing away someone else's plate. She got shouted at because of health and safety. And it was just her being kind, And I still remember that video, and I still remember that moment, looking at gender imbalance in South America, where my family is also from. And I just burst into tears. And I was like, I'd been watching, reading Lord of the Rings. So Lord of the Rings was in the head. And I just remembered thinking, what is one ring to rule them all? Like, all these instances as designers, we fight. As an inclusive designer, I stand tall, but how do we change this? And the answer came back through the rain, through the shower, through the water, through the tears. Leadership. You change leadership and you change everything. And the next phrase was, we need creatives who are leaders and leaders who are creative. And the Red Dot Award people, again, not plugging them, but they did a piece of research which lots of councils around the world have shown this, that if you have designers or creatives in your company or at board level, you're 2 to 5 times more likely to survive a recession. So I then started asking, why is creativity left out of most conversations? But you can't just have creativity, you also need to have empathy. And I was like, empathic creativity is one thing, but you need that intellect, and that's clarity. So intellect is a knife that's all blade and no handle. Dictators have intellect. Empathy gives you the handle. Creativity tells you how to use it. So that was a kind of modeling that really came across really rapidly. And it was in the space of a month or so. It was in the shower that those 3 things came up.
Wow. What a moment of inspiration and a moment of genius, I'd say. And thank you for sharing your vulnerability and sharing that story. It shows your own personal capacity for empathy, to be able to kind of put yourself out there, and your emotional intelligence, we could say, is really great. I appreciate that. I would wondering, as we wrap up here, if you could reflect briefly. We've seen so many changes in my generation, from understanding sexual orientation to understanding neurodiversity, and cognitive psychosocial disabilities. All these things have changed really dramatically. I'm wondering what you see as the new frontier in this field. Like, who is being left out of these conversations? Whose identities have we not understood fully, the nuance or the kind of characteristics that that they're facing in the world around them?
So I think the next tranche of my research is focusing on two things, because one is operationalizing, well, both of them are operationalizing inclusive design, universal design. And one is really focusing on business behavior, on people, on leadership. So it's kind of almost in the life and leadership capacity. So when you think of leadership needs inclusive design applied to it. And I think that is the creative leadership argument. We need to create new trajectories for leadership, because 95% of us are not included. You know, if you look at leadership training, where does it come from? Just Google leadership training. All of you at home do this. What comes up are words to do with command, control, or if you get into the business world, and, you know, again, typically from blue collar, no, not blue collar, sorry, typically from universities, you know, Ivy League universities or Russell Group universities that have management schools. That's where you're told or taught to be a leader. What does that even mean? Because when we asked 120 people from 34 different countries and regions, everything from students, you know, people who are students at the moment, right the way across to being directors, they said number one that they look for is active listening. Number two is empathy. And then there was diversity and various other things. They didn't mention profit, shareholders, business canvassing. All of those things are skills, but are they qualities? So I think most of us are excluded from leadership because we're too short, too female, too non-binary, too brown, too black, too quiet, too introvert. And I was told, you know, when I was a teenager, thankfully my parents didn't believe this, so they had other beliefs in me, but they said, so what I was told actually at school is that I'd never be a leader because I was too quiet.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, I will be sending this podcast to my old headmaster.
Good on you. Good on you.
And I am an introvert, but introverts can be leaders.
Yeah.
And I think the second thing, which is to really do with inclusive design itself. So I think the leadership angle is number one. The second thing is, even in our inclusive efforts, we can be excluding.
Yeah.
So, you know, we did a project where the company brought in disabled groups, DPOs, disabled persons organizations. And most of them were sort of mostly male, mostly older, mostly white, and mostly from large cities in the UK, mostly England. And when you start to look at that, you say, where are the people of color? Where are younger people? Where are non-binary? Where are women? Where are people on different spectrums of income?
Yeah.
And that really started just making me think about, you know, intersectionality. So I think, you know, one of the things, you know, I think this is the first podcast really sharing it on, but is inclusive design. Certainly here in the UK, we've had a heartland and a heartbeat of, well, I suppose heartland is aging and ability.
Yeah.
So age and ability. And I think the heartbeat, we, you know, also need to look at gender and race. So there's thousands of ways people can be excluded, but 4 ways you can self-identify is race, ability, gender, and age. And it spells out the word raga, R-A-G-A.
Yeah,
and it's a
which is
starting point. And it means melody.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's part of the traditional Indian musical styles. Yeah,
that's right. Which I'd also studied Indian classical music. So
wow.
I believe that's going to become increasingly important. Personally, I think since the murder of George Floyd, racial and, you know, racial and ethnic exclusion is incredibly important. Because, you know, there's stats and things out there that show financial poverty, energy poverty, 3 to 5 times more likely in certain parts of the world. You know, for Black or brown people. And, you know, the stats can go on and on. So what
Absolutely.
does this mean? So I think that's an incredible future for inclusive design. It's that leadership and it's that intersectional crossover. We can't just be exclusive in our efforts and say, you know, we're limiting universal design to certain
Yeah.
types and
Yeah.
certain sectors of disability, for example.
Love
We've
it.
got to widen out.
Rama, you've given us so much wonderful inspiration here, and I can't thank you enough for your time and your energy, your attention. And as long as I'm thanking you, look, you've made this your career. You have a strong enough mind, strong enough skills that you could have made any other industry or field your career. And so I want to thank you. I want to express my sincere gratitude that you chose this field to make your career, and it's absolutely phenomenal.
You put it really nicely. And if I could have a couple more sentences
Yeah,
just
yeah,
to
go
say
for it.
that actually, my, you know, I feel hugely privileged to be in this position and on this podcast. And actually, I almost feel that my career, my growth, my life, my journey, the minutes of my years have been marked by probably accepting vulnerability,
Mm.
loss, and actually, you know, I am sometimes over empathic, being Indian and English. Sometimes those cultures lean into me in that way.
Yeah.
You self-deprecate. So one thing I would say to people, I really want to end with this, is your level is the right level, no matter where you're starting, and no matter what you think you can do or can't do. I looked at people who I thought were so amazing and ahead, and when you speak to them, you realize that they started from a point of view of dissatisfaction. So a less
Mm.
gentle dissatisfaction to be there. Seek
Mm.
love, seek empathy, don't seek power.
Mm.
Make sure there's joy, faith, and grace in your life. And almost every day, I remember something my mother said to me when I was a hopeless and feeling slightly hapless 15-year-old. And I was like, I don't know what I will do in life. I'm so incredibly shy. I'd never speak to people. I'm not a great designer. And she said, no, but you have a heart and you have a head. And
Mm.
she said to me two things, which are a quote from the Indian poet Rabindranath Tagore. And number
Mm.
one is everything's not planned out. And she said a little epigram, two lines. He said, "What light does destiny have for her little children stumbling in the dark?" And the heavens responded, "A blind understanding." And she said, "That's all you have, but it is an understanding." And she said, in terms of getting started, another little four-line poem is this one. And this, I think, is really a quality of my life, how I live my life. It's a philosophy. And it's this: who will take up my work? Asked the setting sun. And throughout the land, no one answered. Alone in the corner, dusty and forgotten, the earthenware lamp said, I will, my lord, as best I can. You do not need to be the sun, the moon, or the stars. You can be an earthenware lamp. And my God, I think feeling dusty and forgotten is also part of the human experience. And it's where you lean into it and what you turn into and stand up and light your lamp. Because you light that little clay lamp, it'll give you the light that you need, and others will come to sit in the sunshine of your shadow. So
Absolutely beautiful. Thank you again so much. You're wonderful. And yeah,